Yo guys, what is up and welcome back for yet another episode of the Off Grid Podcast. Absolute pleasure to be back in your earlobe today, joining you on your run or baking or maybe even an expedition on the top of Everest. What's up to that, dude? Alright guys, this week's episode, it was quite funny how it all came together because I was waiting outside this particular office space that we were going to meet up for the podcast. I just thought, you know what, I reckon I could get in here. I was waiting outside on the street in London and I was like, no, I reckon I could probably just get in and set up and get recording. Anyways, managed to find my way in by a very kind member of the public and a use of persuasive linguistics. Managed to find my way into the building and then bumped into this guest. I was like, oh, George. Hi, George, it's Jake here, ready to record the podcast. And he was just like, mate, absolutely brilliant. Let's find a room, let's click record and get this bad boy on the road. This week's guest, I'm joined by Mr. George Bullard. George is a record-breaking explorer. When he was 19 years old, he and his teammate Alex Hibbert set the world record for the longest unsupported polar ski expedition, covering 1,374 miles in 113 days. He has also kayaked from Greenland to Scotland with his teammate Ollie Hicks, covering 1,200 miles in 66 days. In this conversation, we talk about kayaking along the Thames to George's job in finance, swimming the Channel when he was 14 years old, what being completely isolated with teammates on expeditions can teach us about friendship, choosing not to conform to society's prescriptions of life, and how to live to our full potential with a real energy for life. I found this conversation extremely fun, energizing, and just hilarious. So hope you guys absolutely love it, and on with the podcast. George, welcome to the Off Grid Podcast.
It's an absolute joy to be here, Jack. Thank you very much for having me.
It's been an adventure already getting to this point.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Jack first saw me this morning in my cycling outfit and it looked like I was working on the roads.
Yeah, and it's Jake as well.
Yeah, that's so annoying.
So I've kind of hijacked into George's office and sort of said, do you want to click record?
Yeah,
really give him a choice.
Yes, Jake, I'm very sorry. But it's a joy to be here and it's great to meet you. I'm loving the tash you've got going on there. How you've managed to persuade that to cling onto your upper lip is something.
It's amazing sticky glue that I've got. Got it from the arts and crafts shop. But George, I wanted to start first of all, which is already clear, with your energy. Because there's, when I was doing research for this episode, I was genuinely smiling. Because I was like, this guy's just so much fun. You have such a great lease for life, a great energy for life. You're just swimming in ponds. And I was just like, oh, this guy, you really like a living life. And you got this great energy. So I wanted to start with where you thought that energy comes from in your life, what this great energy is.
I've got no idea where that energy comes from. This probably podcast will be the most useless podcast in the world, so you'll be like, oh, why did I meet that guy? But in a sentence, I have a relentless curiosity for things, and when an idea comes into my head, what is it like in that lake? However muddy or crap it looks like, I'd have to go and see, because it just might not be. And that whole little person in the back of my head saying, but it might not be, makes me want to check it out and go and see it. And for me, that curiosity just is absolutely burning, and I hope it will burn forever, because I've got lots of opinions about how I think that curiosity is taught out of us, and through school we're taught to fit into a box and constrained to the bounds of society. But for me, that curiosity has really led me to keep on pushing those bounds in my own head, pushing those bounds a little bit further. What's it like up that tree? What's the view like? All these questions that keep on coming out. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go and find out, because else I'll never know.
That's great. And is that something you've always had, or is that kind of something that you is it like a conscious decision that you make where you're like, I'm going to be curious in life, or is it just like this kind of innate, you just are, always have been?
No, no, are always have been. No, definitely not a decision. But sometimes it's like my frontal cortex of my brain has to be like, no, don't do that because you will die. Okay, sorry, I won't do that. Good point. When I was younger, when I was a lot younger, I was 5, I was actually very keen on climbing trees. And I was climbing trees in a field of cows, and I was like, oh my God, wouldn't it be cool? Obsessed with like Clint Eastwood and all that sort of stuff. Not that he rode cows, but wouldn't it be cool to ride a cow? Swing out of the tree and ride a cow. And anyway, so true story, I set up a rope hanging off the low branch, and I hid it up into the branch of the tree where I was sitting, waiting for the cow to come along, because they were all quite curious. They saw me go up the tree, and they would always kind of like look up at me and wonder what I was doing. So I thought, perfect, easy. They'll just appear, and I'll be able to swing down and out of the tree on the rope, and then let go of the rope and land on the cow. And I don't quite know what happened next. Never got that far actually. What I did was I picked up a bit of rope, the end of the rope. Obviously, I wanted to swing the furthest to get the furthest, to give me the most range. Unfortunately, I picked up a bit of rope that was too far away. So what I basically did was fall out of a tree, and I broke my skull when I was 5. I had to learn to read and write again. So maybe that's where that curiosity's come from. Yeah. That frontal cortex wasn't strong then. Still not that strong now.
Okay, wow. So your childhood, would you describe it as like this kind of playground? Because was it in Norwich?
Yeah,
So you grew up to 2 gin makers. Is that right?
Not good research though, Jake. Very impressive. Very impressive. No, almost long story on that front. But so my great grandfather was a brewer in Norfolk in 1837, and then that disappeared in the 1960s, and then it was restarted again by someone else in 2015, and we sort of got back involved as a family. So yeah, it's a long and turbulent journey in my opinion.
Yeah. Was growing up for you, was that kind of like a child running free? Was it a sense of like you had this immense freedom? Because you mentioned just then that you felt like as kind of you got older with schooling and maybe like the career and the way that the system in society is designed, it's like kind of trying to box you in. So did you feel like as you've got older, you went from this like kind of like free, energetic spirit to like somehow maybe like society trying to categorize you? Yeah, tamed you. What?
Damn society taming me.
What was that experience for you when you say like you felt like the system was trying to box you in? What were those experiences?
I think you're absolutely right to observe that, and I think that's probably what I've been feeling over the last 3 months since I've got this job. So I'm full-time employed, and I have gone from, as you say, a childhood where it was very free, and I was the youngest of 3. So by the time I was 10, my mum really couldn't care less what I was doing. She was like, I've got a boy and a girl. This one's just annoying. So sooner he can leave, the better. She doesn't think that. Love his mum. So it was very free. I was very able to do whatever I wanted to do for the most part, and I would often find myself just wandering along on sort of footpaths and stuff, and being a weird kid, breaking sticks and building ant nests or whatever, but kind of in my own mind. And then I think if I compare my life to then and now, I think it's safe to say that I've conformed. And that sometimes grates me somewhat. But who knows? In my head, I'm like, look, life's a beautiful, wonderful adventure, full of different chapters, full of different sort of moments. And I think it's in my opinion, it's very important to like embrace those chapters. And whilst that chapter of a full-time explorer, adventurer might have closed, it's still the same person behind it. And it's always part of my story, and it's always going to be there. So I don't feel like I've turned my back on it. I really feel like actually all I'm doing here is, building on it with the coaching qualification, building on it with with work, and might get to earn a bit of money, and that might give me the freedom to go and do something else with it. I don't know. So I very much see life in sort of different chapters. And this chapter right now, the main focus isn't expeditions and adventure. Those have subsided to a degree, but who's to say that that's not going to come back? Because, as I said, that's always part of my story, and that's why I love doing podcasts like this with you, because I actually get a chance to remember what it was like charging around the UK, charging around the world. Being weird.
Yeah, and it's a great weirdness to have in your life, and to be familiar with, as well, to know that you're able to go and do these things. And I've also felt the same as well. Like I felt like as I'm getting older, life just gets like a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, am I losing that kind of like free?
How old are you?
26.
Hey, you better lose that freedom pretty soon. I'm joking. I got another 10 years, babe. You're fine. You've got ages. Another decade to have a great time.
Yeah. I mean, but I get that. You know, as you get older, you need to pay bills, and you need to like it's kind of, you can't help but conform somewhat if you want to be part of society, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be on like Ben Fogle's New Lives in the Wild out in the sticks, unless you want to.
That might be chapter 10.
yeah, maybe. And that's a lovely openness to have.
Yeah, I think we're so lucky. Like we've never been luckier. Like, when was the last time you worried about where your food was coming from or your water was coming from? Wow, unbelievable. Very lucky we are. So we must lose sight of that, and all those choices that you mentioned around going to live in the wild versus conform. I completely agree with. So I'm not bitter about conforming. I'm super excited about it, and actually with conformity gives you the chance to dip outside it a little bit and be extraordinary, maybe.
Yeah, it's cool to have those experiences. And I think when I was looking at like what you got up to as a teenager, like as a boy, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so extreme. Was it you swam the channel when you were 14?
Yes, that's part of the team who swam the channel at 14.
Okay, how did that come about, and what? I mean, I assume you weren't sort of the instigator of doing that.
No, we had the most amazing swimming coach who I still see a lot of today. He's an amazing person, and his family are all wonderful. And he was the instigator behind all of these swims. And so as we were going through school, unlike, there was like the football team, this is kind of stereotypically, the football team's like, the legends who done loads of tours, they play in front of big stadiums, and they don't actually, but they think they do. And this is between the ages of 13 to 18 or whatever. The rugby lads, they've got funny haircuts, and they've the big lads who can win at arm wrestling. And then, of which I was part of them all. I love them all, and fully endorse these stereotypes, because I was one of them for a time. But then there was the swimming team, and at school we were the most toured team, so we travelled the most. Every year we went on tour, which was unbelievable. There was a very keen coach and a very keen group of individuals, young people who were enthusiastic, curious, up for a challenge, up for an adventure. And in our second year at school, we decided, guided by our coach, got the opportunity to swim across the channel, and then we swam around Barbados, and we swam around New York, around New York, and then we swam along Lake Zurich. And those were our 4 years at school. As a team, we were like, we weren't superheroes at all, but in my mind, we were superheroes. Yeah. So it was pretty nuts.
That is just like such a unique experience to have for such a young boy, like a developing mind that's going and doing what even now, like if an adult did that, it would still be considered this like massive feat.
When I think back onto each of those trips, I'm like, that's insane. At 16, swimming around Barbados, I came to terms with death. Not a word of a lie. I was like, if I go now, I was like, it'd be a bit annoying, but it could happen. Because there was a mothership with a team on it, and then a smaller boat going along with the swimmer. And this mothership was separated from the swimmers by a reef, and so the smaller boat had to go and leave the swimmer in the water alone for a period of time to go and fetch the next swimmer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in that moment when you are left alone, it was super rough. That swim actually had to be stopped because of the rough seas and the bad weather. So it was super rough. And one minute I could see the bottom, the next minute I couldn't see the bottom. I was wearing a Stinger suit. So it's a suit that covers you from your fingertips up, up to the high neck, over your head, and all the way down to your feet, for Portuguese men of war. So they're these super, okay, can be deadly jellyfish, but also around Barbados you've got shark infested waters and stuff. So at that moment, swimming alone in the sea, I was like, felt pretty alone, pretty isolated, pretty small, pretty insignificant. And I was like, well, if I go now, I'm actually pretty powerless. I can't do anything about it. It's completely out of my control if I'm to die now. And I was like, well, be a bit annoying, but at least I swam the channel and, swam around New York. That's pretty cool for a life well led, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was a pretty amazing experience for a 16-year-old to go through. And you're right, I think it probably does form me today.
Yeah, it's like one of these childhood experiences where you can't really maybe remember it all or explore like specific details, but you just know that it's shaped you as a person.
Yeah.
And you then, since when you were 19, you then did the longest polar expedition, 1,374 miles, 113 days, with your mate Alex Hibbert. How did that come about? Because for me, thinking back to my 19-year-old self, I was a big boy at uni trying to work out who the hell I was and going through all the teenage, drama of life, of like figuring out who am I, what am I doing in this world. And to think that guy was going to trek across, on this polar expedition, I can't comprehend that. So what was it like at that time? How did it come about, and what was the reason for doing it?
Yeah. So I tried to get into uni to read medicine and failed. So I had to take a year out in between school and uni. And the first half, I was, at that point, the whole world is my oyster. And I wanted to go down to Antarctica. So I went with a company called British Schools Exploring Society, now British Exploring, who do amazing things for young people still today. And off the back of that trip down in Antarctica, it was a 2-month youth development and leadership scheme that we had to raise money for. Loads of stories about that too, but no time for that. Maybe we can get back to it, I don't know. Maybe we could do 2 episodes. How about that? That would work. So off the back of that expedition, I was giving a talk at the Royal Geographical Society in London. We were, as an expedition, back briefing our expedition, if you like, with British Schools Exploring Society. And afterwards, this guy came up to me and said, I'm Alex, and do you want to come do this trip with me? And I was like, yep. The curiosity bit overcame the frontal cortex bit, and it was like, yes. And at that point, I was in, and it was kind of too late at that point in my eyes. I'd sort of said yes to him, and that was the first time I met Alex. The second time I met Alex, we were packing our sledges, and the third time we were in the airport leaving. So I met this guy 3 times before going to spend 113 days on an ice cap with him we lived in a 6.5 metre square tent.
Why do you think he asked you?
I think he needed someone, and he was also very young, and I think in his eyes he needed someone younger so he could lead them, which is fine. And fortunately he chose me. I think, I don't really know why, you have to ask him why he chose me, but that's in my eyes why he chose me. Was looking for a guy who'd done a bit, and actually at 21, not many people had done much who were younger than him, and so he came and found me.
So you guys are, obviously you're in like the most intense environment. You're in the middle of nowhere together, and you're essentially getting to know each other.
Yes.
On this expedition. What was that experience like with such an intense time with, I guess, a stranger?
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Gosh, what to say about this one? I felt that my experience of so while I was at school, we could have boarded if we wanted to a few nights of the week and spent some time there. And so you have to get on with the person you are sleeping in the bed next to, because you sleep in big dormitories. And I very much relate back to that experience when it comes to getting to know someone in a very intense environment. That you've got to keep yourself to yourself. If your stuff and belongings are all over theirs, that's going to really start to. It's the really small things that annoy someone and get on their nerves. And so, it was a very interesting experience. But I didn't really feel like I felt like we spent long enough together, even on those 3 meetings, that I kind of knew who he was, and getting the kit ready to leave is an ordeal. It's a full sort of like 2-day thing, maybe even 3-day thing. So I'd gone down to his house, and he was only 21 at the time. So I got down to his house, spent some time with him and his parents, and packed our stuff in his garage, and off we went. But I mean, I also reflect on it and think, my gosh, that is insane. I'd never skied before, never pulled a sledge, and I was going to go and pull a sledge for the longest any human's ever done before. And I was like, yeah, all right. What? Are you joking? Are you mad? And it was I think that comes back to a toolbox that I think my parents had given me. Like, it was just that relentless enthusiasm, that relentless curiosity, that was like just relentless self-belief. Like, why would you not go and give it a go? You can give them this opportunity, and you've got to go and give it your best shot. And it's completely up to you what happens next. But this opportunity is only going to come around once. And if you say no to it and sack it in, it's your choice, but it's never going to come again. And I think that was part of what kept me going.
And do you think you realise that as a 19-year-old? Do you think you realise that this might not come again?
Yes, 100%, 100%. It was there were moments there. It was like pinch yourself moment. I was like, I am the luckiest person alive. Seeing what I could see then. It's not beautiful. I mean, it is beautiful, but it's also, as I said, I mentioned this before, incredibly isolating. You're incredibly small. You're so insignificant. You're so small, and everyone's got their own worries and problems and concerns. I appreciate that, but just in that environment, you're just so small and powerless and pathetic, and I love that feeling.
What was that 19-year-old going through? Like, if you're reflecting back on that boy, if you don't mind me saying, and he's going through this extraordinarily enduring, isolating experience at such a young age, how would you describe like what that young man was going through?
I think there was a couple of overriding thoughts. One, I was jealous of all my mates who were getting pissed and having a great time on a beach, a full moon party in Cape Ann. If that's even still a thing now, then I don't know. But yeah, super jealous of them. I was like, oh my God, I wonder how they're getting on. What the lads up to, I wonder what the stories have managed, kind of come out from this. And then I spent a long time sort of thinking about my family, wondering what they were up to. And otherwise, I just tried to be like, it's very easy to let yourself worry about what the future holds, and you're so insignificant, you're so powerless, therefore, oh my God, am I going to be okay tomorrow? But I tried to reassure myself that actually, I remember Alex and I compared ourselves to a refugee, because compared to them, we were so fortunate. And I think this then put us back in the positive frame of mind, being like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. Because I knew where I was going to sleep that night, in that tent that was behind me, on that sledge. I knew where my food was coming from, in that sledge behind me. I knew how much I got. I knew I'd going to be satiated that evening, even though that day I was gasping for food and all rationed. And, if you're still hungry after this, sorry, mate, that's it. And thirdly, I knew that when that food was all over, I was going to go home. So even in that situation where I had almost nothing, literally nothing, I was still lucky. I was still fortunate. And I think those 3 things are what kept me going.
What did you learn about adversity out there? How did that sort of come up in your mind? What form, what shape did it take?
Ooh, I think I didn't really realise the amount of adversity that we were going through at the time. I think if I was to go and do it again, I think I'd find different things much harder. And I think because I was so naive, because I was so, just full of the joys of the moment, I was like, this was amazing. I wasn't, but because obviously it was deadly serious, and if you made a mistake, there would be serious, grave, potentially life-threatening consequences. So I think the adversity there was tremendous, much more than I appreciated. But because I was I want to say living in the moment, but that's such a coined phrase. I was very much like, okay, I could worry about tomorrow, and I could worry about the storm that comes tomorrow that could kill us. Genuinely, it could kill us. But there's still things we can do, like, we can still dig down and live underground like a mole and be okay till the storm passes and then sort ourselves out. So even in the storm situation, I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. It might be a bit uncomfortable for a bit, but what's the worst that can happen? This comes from a trip in Antarctica. What's the worst that can happen? You can die. And this leader then walked off over this like knife-threaded precipice, and I was like, well, he's got a point. Fair enough. So that's the worst that can happen.
Wow. So it almost seems like a almost non-emotional, kind of very practical way of looking at your life and realizing that what's the point of worrying? What's the point of kind of creating a bigger problem than the problem itself? Is that something that kind of stuck with you in your life? Is that something that you've managed to keep as like a mental tool, or do you lose it over time?
100%. And I think I've been through some moments in the last few years where I've had to like self-treat myself. So I've been giving talks to companies and schools and youth groups and charities, whatever, for a long time about all of these tools and stuff that I've used or learned the hard way, perhaps. And I had to then treat myself. I had to be like, as you say, this problem's not a big problem. I'm okay. What's the first thing I need to do? Do one thing today, and just do one thing today, and then leave everything and be content that you've achieved that one thing. So, when everything fell apart in my life, I was like, right, the first thing I need to do is find a car parking space in London so I can get back into London. I don't know why I needed a car parking space, because it's a perfectly good train, but that was the thing I needed. So I was like, oh, find a car parking space. I found a car parking space, and then I was like, right, I need someone to live. So I then obviously slept on a mate's sofa. I was like, right, this is now making progress. Here we go. We're off to the races. So
What happened there? Your life fell apart.
What happened there? There was just a post-COVID, basically. I was pre-COVID. I was running a company called I Go Adventures, doing adventure trips all over the world for people. I was giving talks, representing brand, hosting events, doing adventures. Had a big trip planned, the Dark Ice Project to the North Pole in winter. There was a huge amount going on, and post-COVID or COVID, basically, all of that disappeared, the whole lot. So my work life disappeared, and then my then I was single, which I was very sad about. So I was suddenly alone, didn't have a house, and then also there was some like family stuff going on. My parents weren't particularly happy, and that was like pushing down onto the kids, and so like kind of every foundation that I had was rocked or shattered. I'd go as far as saying shattered. But luckily, the one thing, and this is the lesson I took away from it, I was like, your friends are vital, because they're the one thing that's, was constant through all of these stuff, all of these things that happen in your own personal life. Your friends are the people who are actually just super constant, and they're like, it's okay, don't worry, come and stay with us, live with us, eat off our table, drink water from our tap, and that's food, water, and warmth. Brilliant. I'm a survivor. I can survive. And so yeah, I mean, in a short, that's what happened.
What have you learnt about friendship? It seems like you've got really unique experiences, both with boarding school and then spending these intense periods of time, both on kayaking adventure and on your pole expedition. What have you learned about friendship and how to sort of, maybe is the word negotiate, or this sense of like, how friends, they can come and go, and that it's like they're an interesting relationship to have in your life, because family will always be family, and when you have a partner, it's very intense, and it's like, you know, you're either together or you've broken up. So it's like kind of a clear definition there as well. Whereas friends are kind of, you know, there's kind of this maybe transient nature. You don't see them for months, but then you're best mates again when you do see them. What have you learned about friendships in particular, that unique relationship?
As you say, I think friendships are completely unique. What have I learned about friendships? I think they're absolutely essential. They're fundamental. And as you say, friends come and go. And that's another thing I'd learned, that they come and go, but also don't be bitter. I'm not bitter about that at all. I completely understand, you know, life kind of, as you say, ebbs and flows, and it's up to me how I respond to a friend ebbing or a friend flowing, you know. And that's a wonderful part of life. I think that friends do ebb and flow and come and go, and they're present and not present. And I would say, I think if one can be, I'm very grateful for all of them in whatever form. I definitely learned that yeah, whatever form a friend takes, whether they're like a lifelong friend or call it whatever, put them in whatever bracket you want, they're all essential. Whatever role they play, they're absolutely essential in your life. I try not to. I definitely do not think that because I haven't seen a friend in a year, sometimes or more, and they were a best friend, they're no longer a friend. That I haven't got to fit into a bucket. They just are. And for me, that's important, because I think you can have so many grudges against friends who don't make enough effort to come and see you, and you're just like, well, that's okay. You know, don't worry about it. Make an effort to go and see them. I think friendships are really fascinating. They're really interesting things. You're so right. Great to bring it up.
You've got this wonderful looseness to you. It's like a very, very like sort of malleable. There's sort of this non-rigidity to your character. This kind of ability to kind of go with the flow, roll with the punches, and kind of that's extremely that extreme adaptability is like clearly why you're probably so good at molding into very extreme environments where like something completely different is now required of you. And likewise now you're like, you know, we're filming in London, you've got your full-time job, and again this is now completely different. Is there like, do you see yourself as like you've got loads of these different characters, or is it just one sort of malleable adaptive personality?
I love that about life. I honestly, that really gets me going. I love that. And because life's like an unbelievably beautiful thing, and I have thrown myself at it. And one on the first moment in a day, I could be giving this. I'm not going to list that all crap, but I could be handing out flyers. Is another one of my favourite memories. I put a tent up on Wellington Bridge, slept the night on Wellington Bridge, and in the morning when the commuters were coming over the bridge, there was like an IGO flag and a guy in a tent who looked like a tramp handing out cool flyers. And there must have been that. I don't know what this guerrilla marketing technique was, but or kayaking into the work in the morning on the River Thames or something.
What was that like?
Oh man, it was nuts. Made the papers. It's actually, I can't believe I haven't found it. It's actually my most famous thing. Was kayaking a blow up kayak from where I was living in Battersea when I was working in finance in the city. I used to kayak on the Thames. And then I used to walk through the city with this kayak on my head and do all sorts of weird shit with it. Sorry swearing.
No, that's great. Do whatever you want.
Do all sorts of weird stuff with it. And I mean, where was I got to? The varied and beautiful stuff. I very much see I'm one person, and I just sort of, you know, mold between all these different things, and it really gets me going, and I love it. It's really fun going from like giving a talk to, I don't know, doing a coaching session, and then to, I don't know, swimming in a muddy pond up in Northampton. I don't know. It's just so funny.
I love that. I think it's like, it's one of those rare skills I'm learning as I get older and live through a bit more of life, where people, you know, start getting in relationships, and my friends are talking about maybe buying a house or what career path to take. It, you know, really big decisions which I think a lot of people have to make in your 20s, and you know, you're really starting to think about your life.
I still haven't made that decision. I'm 37.
Yeah, well, Well, maybe even if you don't, maybe you end up doing it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
maybe
working it out.
Maybe that will come. That is another beautiful thing. We're all guessing. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
That's so freeing. And my wife tells me all the time, because I'm guilty of this, that comparison is the thief of joy. Right? Why are we looking left and right of ourselves? We're in our own lane and we've got our own beautiful race to run, and that is so cool. So who says to buy a house now? But there's this conformity that I'm growing up, must buy a house. And of course there is a certain order to things because we've got biological. We're an animal, right? But the things which you can be animalistic about, and then the things that you don't need to be animalistic about, just enjoy. Go with the bit that gives you joy, because as they say, joy is is the end of life. If you haven't got joy, then
you the sense of play. You've got this lovely sense of just like enjoying this kind of this hotel stay that you've got on planet Earth, and just giving it a good shot.
Yeah, like Hotel California, baby.
Absolutely, roots smash on seats all the way. So this kind of playful energy that you've got as you get older, you're now engaged and married, or life gets more serious. And is there, I mean, this is probably more of a personal question, but is there kind of this consciousness, this conscious intention to play, like to look at the pond and go, I need to go swim in that, because if I don't, then maybe I'm kind of losing that side? Is it kind of, you have to be a bit more intentional with it?
Yeah, I think you're right that yes. It's the growing in general, growing in a direction, whether that's up or whatever. I refuse to grow up, Mum. Sorry, I'm never going to grow. I'm going to grow down.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right that there are some things now which I'm like, oh fuck, my knee's a bit sore, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, come on, George, get on and do it. So there's a bit more like, internal rhetoric that goes on, like, to cling on, to grasp onto that curiosity, which is overpowering at times, and that's all part of it. I think that's part of the situation, and I love that. And my wife's super cool and finds it just annoying at times, but whatever. George is just being George. He's fine. Yeah, she knows she married a lunatic.
That's great. That's clearly like it's this like strong sense of just knowing who you are and what you're all about and what it is you want to do. But I've always really rejected the notion that like anyone that's playing is immature, or that this idea that like are you really kind of like grown up if you're swinging from trees and jumping in a puddle or whatever. And I've always had this kind of inner rebellion to that. I don't like that attitude. I don't like someone trying to make me like a grown up in their eyes. And is that something that you've had? Do you feel like this sense of like, I'll show you, or like this inner rebel where you're like, I'm gonna try and do this thing because everyone thinks I can't do it, or you're gonna jump in that pond because no one else would?
Yeah. So it kind of makes you think about, we haven't spoken about this trip, but we did a big kayaking journey and no one thought it was possible, and therefore was that a driver for me to go and do it? And I don't think it was at all. I really couldn't care what anyone else thought about it, because they didn't have to go through it, and they weren't risking their lives at all to do it. And I appreciate there's like so many angles here. It's like multifaceted. When you go and do this sort of thing, is it selfish because you might not come home? And I get that perspective, I really do, and it comes from a place of love and kindness. But that curiosity side of my brain was like, I've got to go and give it a shot. I'm going to make everything in my power to make sure that we survive, come out of this alive. And whether that's having a single man life raft on the kayak, because if that sank, we would definitely have died. So at least we had a single man life raft to get in. They're unbelievably uncomfortable, but it might enable us to survive for an extra few hours.
So this was Scotland to Greenland.
This was
6 weeks.
Greenland to Scotland.
Greenland to Scotland.
6 weeks, was it something like that? 66 days? That's 6 weeks?
6 days. Okay.
Yeah, 2 months.
Just over 2 months.
Kayaking, yeah, and lots of people said we couldn't do that, and but it wasn't. That wasn't a driver for me. That inner rebellion about what people say I can and can't do. It wasn't really a driver for me. What was a driver was, my God, this is like just amazing opportunity, and if I say no to this, I'm never going to get it again. I'm just like that. But I suppose it's like almost a fear of missing out, a fear of not doing this and then regretting it when I'm sitting on my rocking chair, being like, oh my God, I could have done that if I'd pulled my finger out of my arse, but luckily I've still got my finger out of my arse. And I'm like, oh, damn it. Well, that's no way to live a life, in my opinion.
It seems like there's a theme here with the adventures you've gone on this. You're saying yes. So is that to imply that they're asking you to come onto the trip?
I think they come in different forms. The kayaking journey was like, a mate of mine, Ollie, who I did it with, Ollie Hicks. He was working in London at the time. I was working in London, and we met for lunch, sat on the River Thames, and we were like, "What do you think? Are you in?" So that journey was, I suppose there was an element of selection in that you chosen each other, in that example. But other times, then there's a moment of, "Will you come and do it with me?" Or there's a moment of, "Can you help me do this?" Or so yeah. I think there's an element of everything involved. I wouldn't say there was one way it's come about.
And coming here today and meeting you, it's like I couldn't help but feel like we've got these two adventurous spirits in this room in the middle of London.
Yeah, good point.
But you spoke quite a bit about how you're meeting with friends in London, kayaking to work in the city and things like that. How adventure can exist in the city.
Oh my God.
But do you feel like there's somehow is there an irony to us talking in the city this morning, and what is that? Is there a bit of you that's like, I just want to kind of break free, go to the countryside or whatever, or how do you kind of find that you're this adventurous spirit living in London?
Yeah, it's a juggling act and a constant sort of discussion in my mind. And again, it's completely down to personal choice, because I'm completely conflicted. I love the adventurous side. I love being that slightly weird bloke who would, eat seagulls or whatever because he was hungry on an island. But then I also love meeting out with mates, going to the pub with friends in London and doing all the stuff here that London's got to offer. It's amazing. It's unbelievable the stuff we can do from here, and the places we can travel to from here, and the opportunities we get from here. So whilst my character is all about sort of being flexible and no straight lines and right angles, and we're currently sitting in a box effectively in a small insignificant room in London, it's just amusing. It's just funny. What can you do? If I was gonna, and I think I couldn't live both of those lives. I think if I went to find a new life in the wild and live in a wood cabin, and do all that would be lovely for a time, and then I'd be like, oh God, I really fancy a beer with my mates, or I fancy meeting up. I fancy going to a show. I fancy going. I don't know, all the things that we can do in cities here in the UK or in cities around the world, all those things. I miss that. I'm trying to go to a party. Or Christmas carols. Now I've dated it. It's Christmas, guys. Jake can't reuse this now. Got him.
Christmas special.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. Heard it here first, baby.
Look at all the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, quiet down. Quiet down. This always happens. Yeah.
Okay, right. So there's this kind of relativity to life. You can't go live as a monk, but equally don't be like fully hedonistic. You maybe don't go live in a jungle in the middle of nowhere, but maybe city's too intense. It's like, do you feel like you're finding this balance?
As long as I can get out of the city, I found the balance.
Okay.
I genuinely, I feel at times that I can't even stretch my wings in the city, and that's how I feel. So going back to the canal boat and just having some time on the canal boat on your own, popping along or swimming in the canal or whatever. Don't drink it. It gives me that moment just to swim my wings a bit, and I do that every weekend or as much as I can. Might even be during the week, just get out of town, and that's essential for me living in town. So I think we spoke about before we started recording was the chapters of life, and maybe this is like a London bit, maybe this is the countryside bit, and I don't know, maybe there is a log cabin bit somewhere. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
I'm excited for it though.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of this like lovely openness to just being like, let's see what happens, and not kind of prescribing yourself on this imaginary idea as to what the future's going to be, and like needing to hit each checkpoint at a certain age, or as you were saying, which society likes to kind of project onto us.
Yeah. But that's also cool. Like checkpoints is great if you want to do that. There's no right or wrong way. I don't.
Do you have goals?
Yes.
So there is a sense of future as to where you want to be.
Yeah. I've got an idea of what the future might look like, but I wouldn't beat myself if I miss those goals or something different happens. Where I would beat myself up is if I didn't use my time, and I felt like at the end of 5 years' time, I had spent most of it in social media. That's what I would then be like, oh my God, what a waste, dude. Come on. This life's precious and you're living it through your screen, through someone else's life. That would annoy me. That would be the one thing that I'd be like, I'd beat myself up about doing that sort of thing if I felt like I wasn't using my time. And that's completely personal, if I feel like I wasn't using my time well enough, in my opinion. So, that's the only thing I beat myself up about.
Does that sometimes get to you? Do you sometimes beat yourself up about this being on technology the whole time?
Yep. But I'm very comfortable with that now. I never really found that a problem, actually, social media. Of course I use it. Not very well. but there was a time where I used it a lot. But that even when I was using it a lot, I was like, this is just, the stuff I was up to, I just had to share with someone. And I go back through like my Instagram stories and I'm just like, that is funny. That is hilarious that I found myself in that situation is extraordinary, but I'm so glad I managed to put it on social media. So, because it was just so funny. I was like, I had to share this with someone, I can't even think of now what was going on, but maybe a good example was the blow up kayaking in the middle of the Thames. I was doing it for me. I loved it, but I was just like, this is just too funny not to share. I'm like covered in probably poo from the London because I was walking onto the, barefooted. Don't do that, health and safety. But I was walking down to put the kayak in the river. I'd fallen in a massive mud. I had mud up to my ankles, and I'm walking into work. Went to a black tie party on a kayak. It was hilarious.
What, you turned up?
Yes, with a kayak. So there's an event out on Embankment, event space on Embankment that gets put up every year during the summer, and a big marquee, and people can rent it out. They were raising money for, I don't know, rowing across the Atlantic or something. And I was like, oh my God, can you imagine if I kayaked there? And I looked at the tide and I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. I have to do it. So I put my black towel underneath, then put a sort of a heavy Gore-Tex jacket over the top and chucked it in the water, paddled there. I had like my bicycle helmet on and I had a flashing light because I thought at that time I was like, look, I've got to be completely covert this time because if someone sees me, they'll be worried. Okay. And they'll call the Coast Guard or whatever, annoyance like that. I'm absolutely fine. Whereas normally during the morning, I'd wear a high-vis jacket, a white light on my front, a back light on a red light on my back, and I'd be like, "Oh guys, I'm kayaking, everything's fine, I'm safe." I had a helmet on and all this sort of rubbish, just to make people who saw me on the bridge think, "Okay, he knows what he's doing." So they didn't call the police or whatever. Often, that was also another story.
Yeah,
it's amazing how quick a little blow-up kayak is. Through the bridges. Anyway, where was I? Yes, I got to the front door of the party, and they were used to turning up on taxis, maybe Ubers, bit of a bicycle, bit of a push. Suddenly this man with a kayak walks through the front door. And they were like, I was like, can I park this anywhere? And they were like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I was like, right there, will do. Thank you. And I went, and then at the end of the party, it was so funny. 3 a.m, obviously we had a couple of drinks, and everyone sort of bundling each other into the back of cabs, and I was like, I don't want to ride home on a kayak because the tides are perfect. So 3 a.m, I had a couple of jars, and I was like, bumbling along in the Thames. Obviously now I was like, right, lights off, let's dampen it down. Obviously that's a great thing to video. So back to social media, that was a funny thing to share. It was very much for me. I wasn't bothered about who watched it or whatever. How many millions of people watched it.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, like, stick it up and forget about it.
Exactly. And you're doing that thing because you want to do it, and you think it's so funny, you just think it's worth showing for a laugh.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate way, because I feel like now it's kind of reverse engineered as to like, okay, what gets views, what's like gonna get me the likes, and then I'll kind of make my own version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really lovely way to use social media and content. That's cool.
We love it, mate. We love it.
Well, George, thank you so much for coming on and being a ball of energy. I feel like alive.
Oh,
thank you very much.
That's been great to be here, Jake. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
Pleasure.